No, don't say that, Vivian. You can't mean it. The words tore out of Kamsi before she could stop herself. Her voice echoed through the cold hospital hallway, bouncing off white tiles and metal doors. Machines beeped from inside the ICU, steady, slow, unforgiving, like a ticking clock reminding her that her father's time was running out. Vivian just stood there, calm as marble, perfume too sharp for a place that smelled of bleach and sorrow. Her lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. It was a weapon. The doctors won't start without the deposit, she said softly. $100,000, Kamsi. You don't even have 100 in your account. Kamsi shook her head, tears smudging the edge of her vision. There has to be another way. There has to be. Vivian tilted her head. There is. And just like that, everything quieted, the machines, the footsteps, even the rain outside the window. Because in that silence, Kamsi knew nothing good ever started with those words. Hey family, before we go deeper, please take a second to follow and join our story community. Every time you do, it helps us tell stories that remind people they're not alone. Comment where you're listening from. I'd love to know. The next moment felt unreal. They were sitting in the hospital cafe, two women with the same last name, but nothing else in common. Steam fogged the glass between them. The rain outside hit the window like 1,000 tiny fists. Vivian slid an envelope across the table. It was thin, brown, and heavy with something invisible. There's a man, she said, voice smooth. A Korean billionaire. His name is Sukmin Choi. He's dying. Kamsi blinked. And Vivian leaned forward, her eyes glinting under the fluorescent light. He's looking for companionship. One night, his lawyer will contact you. For a second, Kamsi thought she misheard her. But no, the silence that followed was too sharp, too knowing. You're asking me to sleep with him? I'm saving your father, Vivian replied. Don't be dramatic. You think people like him see girls like you again after the lights go off. The words burned. They burned because they were cruel, and because they were true. Kamsi's hands trembled as she reached for the envelope. Inside was a glossy photo. A pale man standing by a hospital window, for lines in his arm, the Atlantis skyline glittering behind him. There was something sad in his eyes. Something human. She almost didn't notice the small label printed on the bottom corner. Choi Biotech, Trial Phase 03A. She didn't know it yet, but that detail, that tiny piece of print, would change everything. Later, she stood in the corridor outside her father's ICU room. Her reflection in the glass looked foreign, swollen eyes, cracked lips, a body running on fear and coffee. Patrick Namdi lay still inside, machines breathing for him. She touched the silver bracelet on her wrist, the one her father had given her on her 16th birthday. He'd said, "When life tests you, hold on to this."
She did.
She held on until her palm reddened. Then her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Car waiting outside. Dean Lee. Her breath hitched. She looked once more through the glass. Her father's chest convulsed. A fit, a choke, a nurse rushing in. It was the sign. Time had run out. "Hold on, Daddy," she whispered through the glass. "I'll fix it." Outside, the rain hadn't stopped. It fell harder, like the sky itself was grieving with her. A black SUV idled at the curb, headlights dimmed, engine purring low. A man stepped out, tall, neat, wearing a dark suit that didn't belong in this weather. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Miss Namdi?" Kamsi nodded. She was shivering, but not from cold. "Everything tonight will remain confidential. You understand." She swallowed hard. "I understand. I have no choice." He opened the door for her. The smell of leather and rain filled the air. And for a moment, just before she stepped in, she thought of what her father always said, "You can lose everything, Kamsi, but never lose yourself." She looked at the hospital once more, one last glimpse of the man she loved most, and whispered back, "I'll come back with your heartbeat." Then she got into the car. The door shut behind her with a sound that felt final. She didn't realize it yet, but that single decision, that one drive into the rain, would become the border between the life she knew and the one she'd never escape. The elevator opened with a quiet ding, and for a moment, Kamsi thought she'd stepped into another world. The air smelled like rain and sandalwood. Expensive silence filled the space. Marble floors reflected the city lights like broken stars. Somewhere deep inside, machines hummed softly, the same rhythm as her heartbeat. She'd never seen anything like it, not even on television. "Miss Namdi," said the man beside her. Daniel Lee, calm and unreadable. "Mr. Choi prefers privacy. Please speak only when he addresses you." His voice had the precision of someone who didn't guess, he instructed. Kamsi nodded, clutching her coat tighter. Her shoes squeaked against the marble, each sound too loud, too alive. At the end of the hallway, a door slid open, and there he was, Sukmin Choi, the dying billionaire. He stood by the window, a tube running from his arm to a portable for pump, his skin pale like light through paper. Yet there was something still powerful about him, something that didn't belong to sickness. When he turned, his movement was slow but controlled. Eyes steady.
Calm.
"You're Kamsi," he said. She nodded, her throat dry. "Yes." "Sit." His voice wasn't cruel. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that made everything else stop moving. She sat opposite him, her knees trembling. He noticed the bracelet on her wrist. "You can take it off. The metal might irritate your skin." Kamsi hesitated. "It doesn't come off easily." Something flickered in his eyes, a ghost of a smile. "Then keep it," he said. "Something real should stay." She didn't know why those words hit her so hard. Maybe because nothing else in her life felt real anymore. Not the hospital. Not the money. Not this. Daniel placed a sleek tablet on the table between them. A digital contract glowed on the screen, her name already typed in, waiting. "Press your thumb here," he said. "Funds will clear immediately." Kamsi stared at it. The small circle pulsed, waiting for her. Waiting to change everything. Her hand shook as she pressed her thumb down. A soft beep. Somewhere in the building, a printer whirred to life. Her decision now official. Her soul now paperwork. "You don't have to pretend," he said suddenly, his tone softer now. "You're uncomfortable."
"So am I."
She looked at him. He wasn't what she expected. There was no arrogance in his face, only exhaustion and a strange calm, like someone who'd already said goodbye to the world. "You're dying?" she asked quietly. He smiled faintly. "Aren't we all?" The words hung between them, raw, heavy, honest. And in that moment, something shifted. She stopped seeing a billionaire. She saw a man clinging to his last night on Earth. And he stopped seeing a transaction. He saw a woman brave enough to walk through her own fear. What happened next wasn't romance. It wasn't seduction. It was something else, something wordless and human. Two broken souls trying to feel alive before the darkness came. When it was over, she sat on the edge of the bed, quiet, trembling. The rain outside had slowed to a whisper against the glass. He looked at her for a long moment. "Your father," he said. "He'll live? If your people pay what you promised," she whispered. "They will." Then silence again. Machines clicking softly, the smell of antiseptic and rain still thick in the air. Later, as she walked down the hall with Daniel, she noticed a red folder on his desk. A bold stamp across the front read, Choi Biotech, Trial Phase 03A. Her eyes lingered on it, curious, but Daniel closed a drawer over it before she could ask. "Your driver will take you home," he said flatly. She nodded. Her legs felt heavy. Her chest empty. At the elevator, she saw Vivian waiting, phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, VS Holdings," Vivian murmured. "Make sure it clears before midnight." Kamsi frowned. Who was that? Vivian slipped the phone away. "Hospital billing," she said quickly. "Don't ask questions you can't afford." But her smile, her too calm smile, said everything Kamsi needed to know. The next morning's air smelled of wet pavement and fear. She stood on the balcony outside the penthouse, watching dawn stretch over the Atlanta skyline. Her phone buzzed. Deposit confirmed. She exhaled, a sound between a sob and a laugh. Maybe that's what salvation looks like, she whispered. One wrong night that buys another sunrise. She closed her eyes, feeling the silver bracelet cold against her skin. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried its memory, a quiet reminder of what she had lost and what she had bought. If this story has your heart in your throat, make sure you're part of our community. Subscribe, follow, and share, because this story will break your heart before it heals it. And trust me, you'll want to see what happens next. The first light crept through half-closed blinds.
Soft. Cold.
Unforgiving. Kamsi woke in silence. The sheets beside her were still warm, but empty. The indent on the pillow felt like proof that last night had actually happened, and she hated that it did. The air smelled of rain-cooled glass and disinfectant. The machines that once beeped like countdowns now hummed steady and calm. Somewhere deeper in the suite, a monitor pulsed, slow, alive. On the nightstand sat a folded note in neat handwriting. You kept your promise. She didn't touch it. Not yet. She just stared at the words until they blurred. She wasn't broken. She was just breathing. She wasn't dirty. She was just alive. Then she stood, buttoned her blouse with trembling fingers and whispered, "Daddy, hold on." I did what I had to. The elevator doors closed behind her with a soft click. Her reflection shone in the steel, pale skin, red eyes, hair tangled with regret. Her phone buzzed. Text, payment received. Procedure authorized. 9 a.m. For a heartbeat, she froze. Then she smiled, not with joy, but with disbelief. Her father would live. Her father would live. Sometimes salvation wears the face of sin. She stepped out into morning. The rain had stopped, but the ground still shimmered. Cars hissed by, horns blaring, the world already moving again, as if last night hadn't changed everything. Hours later, she was back at the hospital. Fluorescent lights, coffee-stained floors, the smell of bleach and prayers. Through the ICU glass, Patrick Namdi was being prepped for surgery. Tubes gleamed under the harsh light. Monitors blinked like small miracles. Vivian stood nearby, scrolling through her phone, her perfume cutting through the sterile air. "See," she said, voice sweet. "I told you. Money makes miracles." Kamsi looked at her, eyes hollow. "It shouldn't have to," she whispered. But Vivian didn't answer. People like her never did. Time slowed. Doctors moved behind the glass like ghosts in white coats. Kamsi pressed her hands together until her knuckles whitened. The silver bracelet caught the light, reflecting tiny stars onto the floor. For a moment, she remembered her father's voice. "When life tests you, hold on."
She did.
She held on with everything she had left. A surgeon gave a thumbs up from inside the room. Kamsi's knees almost buckled. The machines beeped steady. The nurses smiled. Her father, was still here. Later, she went into the small hospital chapel. Empty wooden benches. Faint smell of wax and cleaning fluid. She knelt, head bowed, bracelet pressed to her lips. "If there's a price for a soul," she whispered, "let mine be enough." Her tears hit the floor like rain. Then the door opened softly. A nurse stepped in, smiling. "He's stable. Surgery went well." Those words, those simple, gentle words, hit harder than anything else. Kamsi exhaled, laughter and sobs tangled together. She wanted to run to his room, to hold his hand, to believe it was over. But then, the television in the waiting room flickered to life. News anchors talking fast, scrolling red letters flashing across the bottom of the screen. Breaking, Korean billionaire Sukmin Choi in critical condition after experimental treatment fails. Her chest went hollow. Her coffee slipped from her hands. Hot liquid splashed over her shoes, but she didn't feel it. The screen showed his picture, the same man, the same eyes that had looked at her with quiet sadness only hours ago. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "He's dying again," she whispered. Reporters spoke over each other. Choi Biotech CEO, unapproved Phase 3 trial, internal complications.
Her ears rang.
Her mind flashed back. That folder on Daniel's desk. Trial Phase 03A. The puzzle snapped into place. He hadn't been hiring companions. He'd been testing his own cure. And last night he'd known it might be his last. She stumbled into the hallway, gripping the cold railing. The ICU lights glowed behind her, her father's heartbeat steady, her miracle intact. But the price was bleeding somewhere across the city. She whispered to her reflection in the glass, voice cracking. Someone had to die for this. The bracelet glinted under the red exit sign, turning silver into crimson.
But freedom felt like theft.
If you're still with me, family, take a deep breath. What would you have done in her place? Tell me in the comments, I really want to know. And don't forget to subscribe, because the next part will change everything. No, this can't be happening again. Kamsi's whisper cracked into a sob as the hospital TV glowed red across her face. Breaking. Korean billionaire Sukmin Choi, condition stabilizing under experimental treatment. The same voice that hours ago said he was dying now said he was alive. Alive. The word didn't sound like mercy. It sounded like judgment. Her heart pounded so loud she couldn't hear the nurses talking. Couldn't hear the footsteps or the vending machine hum. Just her own breathing, shallow, frantic. She backed away from the screen.
Alive.
The man she'd given everything to. The man she thought she'd never see again.
Alive.
And that meant he could come back. The night outside was thick with rain again, as if the sky wanted to wash everything clean, but didn't know how. Kamsi stepped into the downpour, her hair plastered to her face. She dialed the only number she had, Daniel Lee's, but an automated voice answered. This number is no longer in service. Her breath caught. No. She tried again. Same message. It was like the night had been erased. Every trace of that world walked away. Inside the hospital corridor, Vivian was waiting. Her lipstick was perfect. Her phone was glowing. You look worse than the patients, Vivian said. Kamsi's voice trembled. He's alive, Vivian. Mr. Choi. The man who... Vivian didn't even flinch. And what does that have to do with us? The deposit cleared. Your father's alive. Move on. Move on. Kamsi snapped. You sold me. Vivian looked her straight in the eye.
Calm. Cold. Cruel.
No, my dear. You bought a life. Don't twist the blessing. And just like that, she walked away, heels clicking like gavel strikes down the empty hall. Kamsi ran into the restroom, slammed the door, and stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection was a stranger. Wet hair, shaking hands, eyes that couldn't lie anymore. She splashed her face with cold water, again and again, until the sting drowned out her thoughts. Then she unclasped the silver bracelet, her father's bracelet, and laid it on the sink. For a second, she stared at it. It looked dull, without her warmth. Then, slowly, she slid it back on. If he's alive, she whispered, someone has to remember he was kind once. The bracelet caught the light. A promise renewed. Hours later, she walked past the nurse's station. The TV there was still playing news clips, but this time, it showed him. Sukmin Choi, carried on a stretcher through flashing lights, camera shutters blinking like lightning. A nurse murmured to her friend, they say he was testing his own cure. Imagine that, dying from your own invention. Kamsi froze. His own cure. Her mind flashed back. That folder on Daniel's desk. The red stamp. Choi Biotech. Trial Phase 03A. It wasn't just a sickness. It was an experiment. He'd risked his life for it. And she'd been part of that night. Part of his last test. The thought hit her like a slap. Sudden. Electric. Unforgiving. By dawn, she found herself on the hospital rooftop. The wind cut through her coat, cold and sharp. The city below glowed, Atlanta alive, unaware, innocent. She stood at the edge, gripping the rail, rain stinging her face. He's alive, she said to the horizon. He survived. Her tears mixed with the rain. You saved him anyway, God. Maybe that's enough. But her heart didn't believe her words. Because deep down, she knew survival meant consequence. If Sukmin lived, he'd want answers. If he remembered her, he'd come back. The sun cracked through the clouds, pink and gold streaking across the skyline. Down below, sirens screamed toward downtown. The world kept moving. Kamsi stood still. Her father alive. Her secret alive. And now, the man she thought gone alive. The world had traded one death for another heartbeat. And the price? It hadn't even been paid yet. The hospital room was quiet again.
Too quiet.
Just the rhythmic beeping of machines and the soft rise and fall of her father's chest. For the first time in weeks, Patrick Namdi slept peacefully. His skin looked less gray, his breathing even. The doctors said he was improving. The miracle had worked. Kamsi sat beside him, fingers laced around his hand. The bracelet glinted faintly in the morning light. Every heartbeat she felt under her palm was a reminder of what she'd bought. A heartbeat for a body. A life for a night. Love paid in silence. Her father stirred in his sleep. Kamsi. I'm here, Daddy. He smiled weakly. You did good, my daughter. She smiled back, but her throat closed up. If only he knew the truth. The door creaked. Vivian entered. Perfume first, presents second. She carried a small white envelope tucked neatly under her arm. He's stable? Wonderful, she said, her tone sweet as syrup. You can finally rest now. She reached into her purse and slipped the envelope inside before Kamsi could see what was in it. Something about that movement felt wrong. Too practiced. Too smooth. Later that morning, Kamsi followed her, quiet, careful, down the hall to the hospital cafe. Vivian took a corner seat, ordered black coffee, and began counting crisp $100 bills from that same envelope. A man in a dark coat approached the table. He didn't speak much, just nodded once. Ms. Namdi, he said. The transfer to VS Holdings cleared this morning. Vivian smiled. Then our business is done. The man left. Vivian sipped her coffee slowly, eyes half closed in satisfaction. Kamsi's stomach twisted. Hospital billing? That was the lie she told. So, what business was this? That night, the hospital lights flickered under the rain. The TV in the hallway played endless updates. Choi Biotech stocks fall 30% amid CEO health crisis. Company denies rumors of internal sabotage. Kamsi stopped walking. Her eyes locked on his photo. Sukmin Choi, the man who shouldn't still exist. The man whose name was now whispered like both miracle and curse. A nurse passing by murmured, if he doesn't make it, his whole company collapses. Imagine dying twice, once as a man, once as a brand. Kamsi reached up and touched the silver bracelet. It was warm, too warm, like it remembered the night as clearly as she did. She whispered, you kept your promise. The words were for him, the man who had bought her desperation and given her father another tomorrow. Hours passed. Rain turned to mist. The world outside the hospital blurred like watercolor. Kamsi found herself back on the rooftop, the only place that felt honest anymore. The wind howled, tugging at her coat. Below, the city pulsed in veins of light. She pressed her phone to her ear. Daniel Lee's voicemail played again, that same calm, clipped tone. This is Daniel Lee. Leave a message. She didn't. She ended the call. Some things didn't deserve to be spoken into the dark. Her eyes shifted to the skyline, and there it was. Choi Tower. The building glowed faintly through the fog, lights like heartbeat pulses across its windows. Kamsi closed her eyes. I can't erase it. I can only live enough days to make it mean something. Then, from somewhere below, she heard a radio voice cutting through the rain. Unconfirmed reports say Sukmin Choi has been moved from ICU under heavy security. Neither his legal team nor Choi Holdings have released a statement. Her pulse jumped. Under heavy security. That meant he was alive, not just alive, recovering. She whispered to the wind, he's coming back. And this time, she didn't know if it was hope or fear that made her tremble. Downstairs, her father stirred again, murmuring her name in sleep. Kamsi rushed to his side, held his hand, kissed his forehead. I'm here, she said softly. I'm still here. Outside the window, red emergency lights flared briefly, a reflection of sirens in the distance. They flickered once,
Twice.
then steadied, like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again. The same heartbeat she thought she'd traded away. And somewhere across the city, a man she thought gone forever was breathing again, his heart wired with vengeance, gratitude, and memory. Their fates weren't over. They were only tied tighter now.